Howdy folks, Miles here with Champion Garage, and another session here with how to start your own business, garage business. And the episode 1 was mainly the precursor to what you need, maybe as a general overview. So if you haven't seen that video, go check that video out. This video is really about the building itself, and there's going to be a series of videos about all this, and each of them will have a title. So just this is the first time you're seeing this. Again, I'm going to have them listed by episode, so continue to check us out at Champion Garage and Champion Garage YouTube channel, and again, like, share, and comment. Subscribe to our channel. It's really going to help people out. So as far as getting when you get your garage started, if something that you'd like to do, one thing that you're going to cross at some point in time is going to be a building. You're going to have a building. The old saying, the shade tree mechanics, this is a society today that unfortunately to some degree are heavily reliant on what a shop looks like. I'm going to give you all an example. One time I was doing a build on an F100, and I was going to have the interior completely custom. And I went to a place, and he might have been good, but the appearance of the facility was pretty bad. He did have nice fabric around, but the overall appearance of the lot, the appearance of the facility was pretty run down, and that for me is an indicator of bad business in time past. Now, for myself, as you all know, I started my shop back in March, and we have been leaps and bounds. So I try to make one look good. I would like to have the appearance of the place to be presentable. I come from a military background, and I wear uniforms here. We've talked about that. We won't in this video, but I like a professional look. Now, that being said, you also got to put in perspective money. It takes a lot of money today. Building supplies are very expensive. So, hopefully you have that clientele getting started, putting that bug in people's ear as you get started. This is what I'm going to do. This is where I'm going to be working for now. If you can jump right in, if you have that money saved up like we talked about last video, that's a great thing. If you've already got a facility, such as myself, I had this facility, and I've had to change it since March. And so, as times went on, it looked pretty rough at the beginning. But again, people knew that I was just getting started. So one thing when you're looking at, okay, what am I going to do? First question you ask yourself is, what do I have? Do I have a building that would be sufficient to do work out of? If you don't, look into renting a place. But just remember, anything that you get into when you're just trying to get started, these things add up. Rent and that sort of thing. If you don't have maybe property to put one on, these are things you have to consider. And at the end of the day, it affects your income as a business. So, as I mentioned before, when I say I have things paid off, my shop, how I'm operating right now, which is we're doing fairly good, but I don't have a building I have to pay for. That means that I can have less income and still be sustainable. And I'm in a rural community. In the city, you might have a little bit easier to get by. Okay, so if you don't have the building and you're looking towards buildings, some things that we have to focus on right out the gate is the power supply good enough and sufficient enough to supply your need at the shop. You can get by with less, as I did. When I got my shop started, I had a few lights and I had a few plugs in the back. Outside that, I've had to add many things. You need things that will handle double amp breakers for welders. You need things to handle an air compressor. That's another double amp breaker. You've got to have sufficient lights. You've got to run, sufficient plugs. As we know, we're in a market today that is going towards these electric powered things, and you've got to have chargers. And all those things kind of add up. Your lift is also on a double pole breaker. So your building does have a great deal to do with the future. Now, can you start off at a place a little smaller to get started? You sure can. That's why I recommend, if you have a building, to get started there. As for me, in my place, just so it happened, I don't have to expand. This bay that you're looking at here is my smallest bay. This is an 11-foot bay, and it's 48 feet long. The bay to my right here, to your left, would be a 15-foot bay. It's 48 foot long, and even beyond that, I've got another 11-foot bay, 48 feet long. So you're looking at quite a bit of square footage in my shop. In an automotive world, I didn't have to have the big bays such as like for combines and tractors. But if that's something you're looking into, the bigger the building, the more the cost. Small engines, as we know, you could start with a small garage and work out of your garage there. Now, another thing regarding buildings is doors. That right there is a 10-foot door. It's a 10 by 10. The door behind you is a 10 by 10, and then my big door is a 14 by 12, 14 feet wide, I think, or pretty close, and 12 foot tall. So that'll get really anything, even semi, in. My intentions when I got started changed. I know a lot of people, when they go to college, half the time things change. As they go through college, they develop maybe something that they started wanting to do this and then to change. And that's kind of how I started. You really got to fit your market, and you got to fit what you enjoy to do. I wanted to get into performance a long time ago. I didn't see it happening, and it's just so happened it's going that way. That was a great thing for me, and it's going to be. In a building, floor is important. If you're looking for a building, be leery here of what floor that you have. The floors, that's important regarding what type of machinery you're on, and if you're renting a place, you're liable for the damage that you can cause. If you're looking at buying a place that's already concreted, you need to know how deep these floors are. What people don't understand is what type of concrete they have. Is it supported with rebar? And some of those things you just don't know, and you've got to be able to take that risk. Concrete is very expensive. And around a lift needs to be very deep. I think they say a minimum of like 8 to 10 inches. Now my lift is probably 1.5 foot deep around it. It was poured, my floor was poured specifically for that lift. So if you're either looking at buying or looking at pouring concrete pad for your shop, my recommendations to you is look toward the future. What are we going to be doing? Are we going to need a 2-post lift? Or we need this depth in concrete? Or are we going to, put a 4-post in where you don't need quite as much depth? Keep those things in mind going into the future. All right, the next thing that I'd like to talk about too is, make sure that you can lock things up. You need to be in a secure, building there where everything can be, closed up. I recommend locking the toolboxes up. A lot of people might leave those open. I don't recommend that. Having adequate space too for these things. You can have decent sized bays such as this 11-foot, but when you start packing toolboxes in there around where you're going to be working, that can play a factor. Also, height requirements. As we know, the lift over here, it has a certain height it can go to, and so you need to keep that into mind depending on how high your rafters are. We're in a very tall building here. I think the peak of this building is probably like 20 feet tall. The lift really doesn't play a big factor. When looking at buildings too, just make sure that everything is, for people that maybe don't have experience looking at buildings, make sure that the structure and stuff looks good. check the roof out. How old is the roof? Check obviously termite damage and stuff like that. This had a little bit of termite damage in it when I got started. Those things matter. Also look towards what could be done as far as expanding. Does the building have the potential to be made bigger? Because again, you don't want to throw away the material. This shop here is an excellent shop, but I've also got the ability to go that way, or that way, as far as my expansion could go. I don't personally plan on expanding, but that it can be done. So, when looking at these buildings, make sure at the end of the day, is it going to be adequate for what you want to do? Will it provide you growth? And try to be patient too, going into this as we look toward the future, as we're getting ready to start our shop. Be patient. Don't jump the gun. Sleep on it, and don't just sleep on it one night. Sleep more than that. I know what people say all the time. Hey, it's going to be gone. Be patient. The right thing will come up at the right time. So hopefully these things here with the building, this series here, the building will be sufficient for your needs. Also, if you have any questions, please leave a comment. I'm just speaking from experience what I did. I started in March, and I had to tough some of that out. I had to build my business, and I had to endure some of the hardships there with suffering through some cold weather. And so just keep those things in mind. Also, I tell you what, going into the winter, what's your heating like? What's the city that you may be in? What's their requirements regarding buildings and stuff like that? So you got to pay attention to those versus being into a rural area. How do you heat it? Well, my winter, this winter I'm going to go through with a space heater. You don't have to have it smoking hot like you do your house. You're working. So a 60-degree building would be plenty. 50-degree would be plenty. Thanks for tuning in with Champion Garage, and hopefully these videos will be a help to you. May God bless you, and we'll see you the next time.